Good morning. My name is Otto Ballintijn. I am the CEO of Reduct in Belgium, and we are a developer of gyro-mapping technology for underground utility infrastructure. Before I go into the presentation, I would like to thank Jeff and Jonathan and their entire team for making this event happen again this year. I know how difficult it is to organize everything remotely, and hopefully next year we will be able to all meet up at some wonderful place somewhere in Canada where we can have this event live. I will definitely be part of that again. Reduct is a company that has been around for 20 years, and we have become kind of the world leader in developing gyro-mapping technology. And today I would like to present to you a concept for making this technology more accessible rather than the technology itself. So if you're interested in the technology, do not hesitate to contact me after separately, but this is more a conceptual presentation on the way that we offer our services. So if we look at gyro mapping over the last 20 years, we've basically developed solutions for any type of underground utility, including water, gas, data, wastewater, and so forth. So solutions for pretty much every utility is available right now, and it's been offered globally by quite a large number of service providers. And it is time to take this technology from a niche whereby mostly horizontal directional drillings or other complex situations are mapped to a more generally accepted technology for mapping any part of the infrastructure. So one of the reasons that's not happening today is because the perception is that gyro mapping is expensive. And the reason people find it expensive is because it usually means that there is a lot of planning around it and there's a separate team coming in the field and so forth. Whereas the reality is that actually, if you do it efficiently, you can probably have a price advantage over some of the other technologies. So let me explain that a little bit further as we go along in this presentation. So as I said, the main problem that I see is that the technology is offered in a very inefficient manner. Now, what do I mean with that? If we assume, if we assume an area, I've depicted the US here, but it doesn't really make a difference where your project is. The reality is that there is relatively few service providers, system owners, let's say. And the main issue often is that they are located far away from the job sites. Now, because gyro mapping is still considered to be kind of a technical solution requiring experts, the deployment of a team with some equipment immediately creates quite high mobilization and demobilization costs. Long distances need to be traveled, and the team is at least 2 people and so forth. So the perception has been created by the way in which the service is offered right now. The second reason that the service is perceived to be expensive is that because these service providers, they predominantly ask a fixed rate for a day's work. And there is good reason for that, because they don't know yet whether they have to map 100 foot or 5,000 feet. Both can happen, both will take them a day. So the fixed cost covers the mobilization, demobilization, the crew, the equipment, the planning, and so forth. And there's only a very small variable in the pricing for the length of the mapping. So a crew is often inefficiently deployed because basically the volume of mapping is fairly low, but it still takes a day. So let's assume, for argument's sake, that they charge $3,000, and they are requested to come in and do a 300-foot mapping. So if they do a 300-foot mapping at $3,000, the effective cost per foot is $10, which is very high. However, if on that same day they would have been able to do 1,500 foot, then the average cost is $2 per foot. So, the erratic pricing per foot, which is the norm in the mapping industry, is a problem for making this technology, let's say, a mainstream technology, in line with more traditional mapping methods such as GPS or anything like that. So the question that raises is, how do we get out of this dilemma that, yes, on the one hand it's a great technology, on the other hand it's very difficult to spec it in for those writing the tenders, because they don't know in advance what the price per foot is. Well, one of the solutions is to bring the technology closer to the job sites. Get rid of the mobilization and demobilization costs as much as you can. It's one thing. The other option is to say, okay, if we get more feet spec'd into the tenders, and the technology is approved to be one of the methods of obtaining that information, then that is also a necessity for getting rid of the erratic nature. But as you can imagine, this is a chicken and the egg question. On the one hand, we will either have the service providers investing in technology so that they can prove to the utility owners that they can deploy this technology efficiently and cost efficiently mainly, or we have to say to the utilities, why don't you spec it in, and then the service providers will invest in bringing the cost down. Yeah, but who's going to move first? Well, we believe neither is under the current circumstances, and that's why we're introducing the product as a service concept. And we believe this is a true paradigm shift in gyro mapping in general, but it could be a paradigm shift in the way that we look at mapping as a whole. Let me explain what this means. So fundamentally, we have the utility who subcontracts maybe to the contractor, the engineering firm, or the surveyor to do some of its surveying work or the as-built work. And then we have Reduct, which is the system provider. Now, the fundamental principle of the PaaS concept, the product as a service is also referred to as PaaS, is that we will make the equipment available to a utility either directly or under the utility's direction to its subcontractors, free of charge. In return, the utility says, okay, I will commit to a certain volume. Now that can be the utility committing, that could be other parties as well, but for argument's sake, we'll just call it the utility in this case. So we have on the one hand free equipment, on the other hand we have a volume commitment. Based on those two variables, we can come up with a fair price. And I will come back to that pricing a little bit later. What does this mean? Well, the aspects of the product as a service concept bring something very interesting to the table. And the main thing is flexibility. Because we're providing technology basically free of charge, we're saying, okay, you can add, you can exchange, or you can return technology as you wish. Basically what we're saying is, if you had purchased a tool, you would have to find work for that tool. Now we're saying is, find the work and we will make the technology available and the tools available for you to perform that work. I always compare it to the situation where you want to build, let's say, a swimming pool in your garden. When you ask your 3 or 4 contractors for a quote, you ask them for a quote for installing the pool. You don't ask them, you don't specify in the quote that your pool, that the hole has to be dug with a Caterpillar digging machine. That Caterpillar is actually irrelevant, and this is a little bit how we look at it now. We want to make the technology or the equipment component in performing this activity a background activity. The foreground activity is you providing or obtaining the best as-built data that you can get for the purposes that you need it internally, or your client needs it. Why would you want to add equipment? Well, of course, one reason is you may have more work coming your way. Then you need more tools. The second reason could be that you currently have a tool that does a certain diameter, but you have work for other diameters now, and you need different types of tools to be able to service that. And thirdly, you can have maybe a tool that you now are bringing from site to site, which is cost inefficient because typically there's also people involved to operate it. It would for you probably be better if you have a couple of extra tools temporarily or permanently, that's up to you, to have them closer to the site and therefore also ensure that the downtime on site for doing the as-built is reduced to a minimum. Because in fact, the cost of mapping is one thing, but the cost of downtime on site is probably even much bigger than the cost of the mapping itself. So it's a question of increasing efficiency. Now, the second reason that you may, or that you may want to change your portfolio is that you want to exchange tools. Let's say you've been doing a data job and you've been using one of our smaller tools for the DT-DICT, 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. And now your next opportunity is not necessarily the small type of duct, but more in a larger diameter duct, whether it's going to be a sewer or a power cable, whatever. So then you bring back the tool that you don't need anymore and take a tool that you do need. Yeah, you're not, we are your partner in providing you the equipment that you need to do your job. And of course, should you have surplus equipment, like I said for the example where you needed temporarily a couple of extra tools for different job sites, but those job sites have been completed, just bring them back. Bring them back to us, and you can keep doing the work with the ones you have left. So a second feature is we provide this concept with an all-in rate. And an all-in rate means it includes calibration, maintenance, and normal wear and tear. We also provide you with one rate. So you have a portfolio, but not every tool in your portfolio has a different rate. No, we just look at your portfolio as a whole. We look at your volume as a whole, and then we come up with one rate, easy, simple, and transparent. Now, in order to be able to do this, we need to be training a lot more of your people or your subcontractors people to perform this work. And for that, we have set up the Reduct Academy. And in the Reduct Academy, you can find video-enabled training packages for all of our tools. And you can have an online training, an initial training on all our tools on how to assemble them, operate them, process the data, etc. So this gets you and your teams up and running very quickly with the equipment. We no longer need to travel around the world to perform basic training. The basic training is covered by the Reduct Academy. It's a very important element to make this work. So, as I mentioned before, the pricing or the rates that we charge for this service is a balance between the value of the equipment that we provide and the fee that is committed. Now, let me give you a couple of examples on how the dynamics of that works. Let's assume that we supply you with an ABM 30 for an 1.25 inch data duct and an ABM 90 or a DR4 for doing the larger diameter pipes. Let's say anything up to 500 millimeter internal diameter or 20 inch. Now, if you or your customer or the group in which you are in commit to 100,000 feet for those 2 units on an annual basis, then you will be charged $52 per foot for this equipment. And that is a rate that is flat, so it doesn't matter which of the 2 units you use. Now, what does it mean when you change? Now, let's say you upgrade your ABM 90 to a DR4, and by doing so, you can do longer lengths, and all of a sudden you can do 210,000 feet of length. Then your rate per foot drops to 27 cents, because on the one hand you have a slightly more expensive tool, but you have a lot more volume, so your rate goes down to 27 cents. If, for example, at some point you have for a client that also is a wastewater utility, and you need an additional wheel set, then your 27 cents per foot raises by 3 cents per foot to 30 cents per foot. So for the addition of a wheel set for sewer applications, you effectively pay 3 cents extra per foot. So it's all very palatable in terms of the per foot rates. So this is a little bit how the dynamic works on the pricing. And the upside of this concept, as I said, for the people in the field is full flexibility. You have zero investment risk, and therefore it's technology proof, because we exchange tools as they become obsolete, or in terms of technology older, we exchange them for the latest technology that we have. The pricing is transparent, it's competitive, it's very competitive actually, and it's fully variable. Now, what I need to add, of course, is that we're talking here about equipment charges. We're not talking about the price that you would be charging your end customer, because if you are a surveyor, you still have your crew cost. But we see this technology, or this technology not necessarily residing anymore with the surveyors only. It can easily be with the contractors. Somebody needs to pull the tool through the pipe, and that person doesn't need to be an expert on the technology. And the reason it doesn't need to be that is because we've also set up a cloud-based services whereby let's say your experts can monitor everything that happens to all the tools that are within your portfolio. And importantly, in that online service, you can see performance statistics, quality statistics of the tool. Can't go into it right now, but basically those familiar with our equipment, they know that there are a couple of key drivers such as spread and length scaling that give a very good indication of how well the tool was pulled through the pipe and how accurate the result is likely to be. You don't need to be on site to do that. And that makes this concept so attractive. You can centralize all the activities that are happening. You can centralize reporting, quality control. You can monitor the quality of an individual tool or of an individual operator. And if that, for example, if an operator is structurally performing a little bit less than another operator with the same equipment, you may consider giving some extra training or something like that. And Reduct is also there to help you monitor this and the statistics of the tools. Another interesting concept is that we create with the PaaS concept a community of users. We have within that community, we've got the pipeline owners, we've got the service providers, and what we have as service partners. And service partners are people that are related to Reduct, but for example are a local place where you can go to exchange your tools or have them calibrated or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean Reduct is going to set up shop all over the world, but we will use regional service partners to provide that service. It's not very efficient for anybody to have to ship equipment back and forth to Europe the whole time, or anywhere else for that matter. So we're set, every region will have service partners. The community will be a place where you can basically interact with your partners or your service providers, or we can even bring the pipeline owners in to observe certain things or whatever. So we are very keen to set this up and provide that platform with also additional services. If, for example, you have a very interesting reporting template for a certain customer, which is very specific, and you know that other people could, benefit from that, you can offer it through the community, and you can basically sell that as a service as well. We can bring that straight into the platform. So we have high hopes that this will bring the mapping world slightly closer together, if you want to look at it from an idealistic perspective. So this sums up the new concept we call product as a service, or PaaS. We believe it has merit. It is a way to bring the gyro mapping activity into the mainstream technologies, just like any of the other ones. And we are very interested to hear your opinion and your thoughts on this concept, and even more interest to see if we can become one way or another partners in this entire thing. I thank you very, very much for your attention. Please do not hesitate to contact me. I told you in advance, I didn't talk much about the technology itself, but if you have any questions, please raise them now or on one of the communication channels listed at the bottom of this slide. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Well, it was my pleasure, and I thank you for the opportunity, of course. And we, like I said at the start of my presentation, I really, really hope next year this will be a physical event somewhere in a nice location of your choice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we pivoted to the online format. It makes it really easy for people to connect from all over the world without the costs of travel and the uncertainty of things. Hopefully there's no COVID surprises in our future and we all have to stay online. But let's talk a little bit about your presentation. Can you give us a preview of what's going to be in your workshop and why people should attend that?
Okay, that's thank you for that opportunity, John. Yeah, the workshop's got to be about the importance or the benefits of having high frequency data rather than, and high frequency data, I mean, let's say anything from 10 centimeters or less in terms of point frequency, compared to the point frequency you get with traditional surveying, which is usually a point every couple of meters or something like that. You probably don't realize how much information you lose once you extend the point frequency beyond 1 meter. And what I go into is a couple of case studies of different types of utilities of where high point frequency actually makes a huge difference in understanding what's happening with a pipe segment.
Is Reduct going to be exhibiting at IPC in Calgary in September?
We are definitely looking at that. We have not finalized our trade show planning yet, but given all the COVID nonsense we've had for the last couple of years, it's about time we come back to North America. And I think Calgary is definitely a good timing, first of all, and second, it's a good show.
Great, so, thank you. We look forward to having you in Canada again. It's probably been a long time.
It's been too long, yes.
Yeah, I have yet to be to a in-person event yet. Looking forward to it. So maybe, is there anything you'd like to emphasize from your presentation to the audience at this point before we head off to the break?
Well, yeah, I do. It's and I come back to that. The perception of gyro mapping, because of it always being in a niche corner of the mapping world, is kind of unfair. And we believe that the added value of the data it generates is not going to replace any other technology, but it's definitely going to give certain players within an organization, certain interested parties, like you have the engineers that were in charge of the build, they require a different frequency than, for example, the GIS people or somebody else within the organization. And this technology is so flexible in the way that it can handle data. We can provide, the technology provides tailor-made output for the users, the various users within a company. And that's something that's, it's not well known. And it's definitely something we are going to be pushing also at the workshop, by the way. The ease of using it in the field, it's so fast. We can do 500 meters of mapping in half an hour, including all the processing. The problem is getting it there and getting everything set up. That's where the cost is, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. The technology itself has been proven over 20 years. It's becoming better and better and better and easier to use. The interfaces are easy to use. The Academy is now enabling you to train up yourself within half a day or so to start using this type of technology. So don't be scared of it.
Great, thank you. I have a question about your clients. Are you particularly focused in a specific client base, or is it very diverse? What can you tell us about that?
We basically, our technology is used by operators, contractors, surveyors, and so forth. The only thing that really drives it a little bit is the regulatory environment in the country. To give you the two extremes, in China, everything is regulated from the central government. I spent 6 years over there trying to get them to spec it in, and they finally did. And now most pipeline owners own multiple units to do all the mapping because they do everything in-house. Now, in the US, where you have very little regulation, it is more a question of, is it going to save me any money? And there we see, for example, that with the rollout of the 5G and the data centers and the 5G networks, which require big fat fiber cables that go into very small ducts that were already there, we see that pre-mapping of a duct to see if the cable will not get stuck when it gets pulled in is becoming more important. It's basically it's a money issue. It's a time-saving issue. It's not necessarily a mapping issue. So the regulatory environment is a little bit of a driver as to who would be most interested in which market.
Okay, yeah, you talked about the two extremes there. Solomon says, thank you for your presentation. I'm a geomatics engineering student in Ghana, and I've observed that most of the companies here are not aware of this type of product. So I think he's saying it's great to expand your network.
Yeah, we've taken a couple of shots at Africa before, and it is again, it's a very unregulated continent, and that makes it very tricky sometimes to find the right partner to bring us there. Now, if Solomon has any ideas in that matter, if he can suggest what's low-hanging fruit in terms of utilities, we'll be very happy to come that way as quickly as we can.
Fantastic. Otto, I want to thank you and Reduct for being a sponsor of SumSF. We wouldn't be able to do this without you.